Hello, hey, Mitchell here. Oops, sorry. With Streaming Consciousness, back again. I've got a message for you today. Something that I've been kind of watching in myself, and I suspect, anybody that's watching themselves these days are finding some fascinating new territory. Um, watching myself, I and just for whatever future context, it's today is just January 8th and 2025, and so we've had this election, and um, then there's been all kinds of strange things surrounding the election. There was for me, I think a huge piece is that immediately during as the results were coming in, I felt a really strong sense inside that this isn't right. And so beginning even at that time, started putting my predominance on what my intuition was telling me, and starting to turn away from what the talking heads were saying, the media, the news, whatever it happened to be. Um, and that was fascinating because when I did go on any media at all, I tended to look for um, any type of messages that was coming from people who I considered intuitive, and which led me, of course, to the rabbit hole of really cool stuff that's available on YouTube of channelers and tarot and um, astrology and all those things, which I have done, I do know about, and in fact, I do access from here and every now and then, and uh, it sort of led me back to that. Is like, what is happening? Um, of course, the astrology is pointing us to the fact that we have entered into what they call what I've been heard as the divine feminine. And so, if we're entering the age of the divine feminine, then what we're seeing is the kicking and screaming and uh, just not wanting to let go of the patriarchy. And I would say, I've seen studying the different Eastern texts. There's we are in what's called the Kali Yuga, which is supposed to be that space. Say if we're bungee jumping, uh, here up here is the absolute unity with all of the divine, and then we bungee jump out, and the furthest point when that bungee is at its greatest stress and at its furthest point from the divine, it starts to come back. And so, what we've done would be, my guess is, here we are up at the absolute divine, pure love, bliss, and we've come down, explored what it feels like to be completely separate, what the dualities are, what limitations are. And then, of course, that gets down into greed and further separation, where oh, if I can, through might, through force, take more of the stuff despite leaving uh, the vast majority without the basic essentials, I'm going to. That's the consciousness that we've explored. And so we've actually hit that. And I think we're on the way back. So, um, you know, if we're entering into the divine feminine, then what we're exiting must be the what would be the opposite of the divine? You know, the distal patriarchy, uh, the dysfunctional patriarchy, and so we've explored the absolute furthest that we can go from unity. Now we're returning, and no matter how hard they fight, think about this: that elastic, that bungee, has gone to its very, very, very limit. It has no choice but to return. And so we're going to return no matter what they do, no matter what kind of fight they put up. And so let's just be in that energy. Uh, and let's keep focusing instead of down and away. Let's start focusing back up into the light. And, how do you do that? Well, for me, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning, um, I followed my intuition, and it led me to, this really fascinating uh, reconnection with the intuitive arts. And what is the divine feminine if it is not the divine intuition? So I feel like that's where we are. That's what we've come. That's where we're going, and that um, to pay attention to the dysfunction has got to feel terrible. Did and does for me. So I'm not looking at that anymore, knowing that that's in the past. Really, we're on the return visit to higher awareness, higher consciousness. Um, we're moving, more and more into the fifth dimension, which is a lighter energy, a lighter vibration, a more expansive vibration, one that does not depend so much on uh, physical um, manifestations, does not uh, value the physical quite as much either, or near as much. So let's keep returning. Let's keep returning with our vision, with our awareness. Um, a fascinating practice that I've been actually giving to my clients uh, looks a lot like some of the older practices, some of the ancient practices. So I do, I'm a breathwork polyvagal mindfulness coach, and I see people for anxiety, sleep disorders, severe anxiety, PTSD, those types of things. Um, and I work in a clinical setting. So, sometimes I get a lot of the chronic pains in those folks who uh, have very little else. And so um, uh, I get the opportunity to see what these practices can do. And wow, some of these folks who are at their wits' end, the simple practices are incredible, incredibly transformative. And so, what I'm always wanting to do is bring the body into the equation. The body without the mind is always healing. All right. And so, when I come into the body's going to help point me in the right direction because it's always heading back towards health, And so, whatever that means for your uh, mental, emotional, physical, non physical outlook, then uh, if we can come into the body and have the body help navigate you back, then it's doubly powerful. So anyway, I always start with the basic breath, which is uh, only inhale and exhale through the nose. Tongue is at the roof of the mouth, just behind the front teeth, lightly touching the roof of the mouth. The mouth is closed, and there's a small gap between your teeth. Your back is straight, your neck is straight, your chin is slightly tucked. So we don't want this. We want this. So that we really extend the string up through the top of the head. And more like the back of the head, back here. So anyway, we're going to breathe in and out through the nose and then exhale a minimum twice as long as your inhale. So and not a deep inhale. So we want to inhale into the diaphragm. Try to not use the chest at all. Okay, we're going to be bringing our breath deep into the diaphragm. With a long, relaxed exhale, and really feel that diaphragm come up into the chest cavity, into the rib cage. So we're gonna that's our basic breath. And my number one assignment for everybody is to do the basic breath as often as you can in every situation that you can find yourself in. Okay, so let's do that. But then what is so amazing and what resembles some ancient practices is we're going to add two things. One, we're going to do a vagal toning, which, does this look familiar? Namaste. We'll take our hands in Namaste position in front of the chest and then press our hands together as hard as we can. And at the end of our exhale, we're going to hold our breath. So it's inhale, 2, pause, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold. Pressing the hands together as hard as you can. Really feel that diaphragm lifting up into the rib cage. Drop the shoulders down and away from the ears. Press, 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 press. And when you can hold it no longer, a big inhale. I don't want to gasp where you have to open the mouth, but the inhale is as big of an inhale as is possible through the nose. So this is vagal toning. Repeat it 3 times. While you're doing that, keep your eyes focused on the point straight ahead, and then put your peripheral vision as wide out as you can. So while I'm doing this, I'm pushing the edge of my peripheral vision to its limit. And I'm even feeling a bit of a strain behind the eyes. So let's kind of review what's going on here. My ventral vagal nerve comes right down through the diaphragm, but it starts at the roof of the mouth, goes behind the eyes, exits, and actually the ventral vagal comes down and then goes right through the diaphragm. And so when we're putting pressure on it, it's kind of awakening or tonifying that vagus nerve, which helps you to stay in the positive, which helps you come into rest, relax, down-regulated mode, everything's okay mode from the body. The body's sending signals back up to the brain. Hey, everything's okay. Helping the brain wherever it happens to be, especially if you're not doing your focusing and looking at every random newscast that comes up and listening to the doomsayers, which I recommend not doing at all. But the mind, when it gets in that fear mode, sends signals to the body. If we can send an okay signal back, then you're going to get yourself in a much better state of mind, even with what you might be watching and experiencing on the information networks. So there's that, right? So we're going to do 3, maybe 5 rounds of vagal toning. Afterwards, we're going to breathe in, and on the exhale, hum. Inhale, 2, pause, exhale. And so you notice your exhale can go far longer when you're humming than when you're just exhaling. Now the humming is soothing this vagus nerve that goes through the neck. It's soothing for all of the vagus channel, but it's also shaking loose the nitric oxide that is generated in the nasal cavity and increasing the nasal nitric oxide that flows throughout your entire system, which acts as, well, it's a vasodilator. So you have better blood flow into your extremities and into your organs and your core and your tissues, and first of all into your brain, which moves you first of all into your hippocampus and your prefrontal and your frontals, which is where the feel-good chemicals are, the endorphins and the serotonins and the melatonins. They can be released when you're having proper oxygen exchange, which is what the elevated nitric oxide is doing. So it's inhale and hum in the lower registers. You can feel it in your neck, your chest, even in your nasal cavity, roof of your mouth. You let me know where you feel it most. But do that for, I would say, about 5 minutes. So we have our namaste hands, and we have that Om. But we're not doing the exhale through the mouth part. We're just doing the hum, because we want to retain, we don't want to exhale any of the carbon dioxide, those types of things that happen when you exhale through the mouth. So we're holding in all these chemicals that help your system to super oxygenate, because most of us, especially when we're in any sort of sympathetic mode, which is fight or flight, we tend to oxidize, and we're actually reversing that from oxidizing to oxygenating. All right. So that's actually my exercise for the day. I highly, highly recommend you do this 3 times a week. And then, like I say, the basic breath, in and out through the nose, mouth closed, tongue to the roof of the mouth. Do that as often as you can. Bring your awareness to that breath as often as you can throughout your day. And always, especially in neutral or positive situations, so that you associate coming to the breath with being okay. So if you need to draw on breathing in times of panic, you bring in the conditioning of it's okay. And speaking of doing breaths in times of panic, no deep breaths, okay? That's actually going to help to exacerbate any type of panic, fear, anxiety that's happening. We want slight breaths in and out through the nose, all the way into the diaphragm. We're really activating what's right here, your solar plexus. What's the solar plexus? It's the power center. We're awakening the power center. We are in this place now, in the larger scheme of things, where we're moving. We're in the solar plexus heart center. Okay, so we're waking up this area. So wake it up. Be part of it. Okay, take that out into the wild. Bring your attention to the breath. Small oxygenating breaths. And then if you do come into any sort of emergency or anxiety position, small breaths in and out, only through the nose, breathing all the way down into the core, into the solar plexus, and exhaling twice as long. That exhale that's twice as long actively turns off your adrenals, okay? So we're going to be bringing in that sense of well-being while turning off any sense of panic or fight or flight. So like, subscribe, send me a message. Bye-bye.